Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Curbside Podcast. I am your host, Jay Kirby. Here as always with my lovely co-host, the master of the macabre, the Scream Queen bee herself, Britt, and two of my closest friends and tag team partners in the world of pro wrestling, one Mr. Hollywood Hooligan and one Mr. Jake Reaper. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello, hello.
Hey guys. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is going to be so much fun. I can't wait.
It is an honor.
Awesome. I'll check it out later. Sorry, y'all.
So, tonight's topic of the podcast, amidst our current living conditions,
In chaos,
a widespread pandemic. We're talking about the only thing we can be talking about tonight: zombies.
Yeah.
So we are going to jump into a little bit of zombie lore, as far as medical zombies, where it's like an infection that gets out of control. Mystic zombies, where it's like literally the undead rising up. Those weird halfway in betweens, kind of like Walking Dead. And then, of course, all of your good old fashioned movies, games, and TV shows that revolve around zombies.
Wait.
totally.
So
where would you boys like to start first?
Oh man.
Well, it's really funny because I had a dream when I was younger. I know it almost seems like off topic, but it almost relates to this. And in this dream, I was with a buddy of mine, and we're up in this helicopter. And he turned to me and says one day, "Hey, dude, look down there. What do you see?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. What are you talking about?" He goes, "There's zombies down there." I'm like, "Zombies aren't real. You sound really dumb." He goes, "No, seriously." And I looked at him. I was like, "Holy crap, those are zombies." So I guess the idea of what makes a person a zombie, I guess.
Well, I would say limited vocabulary, slow walking, and single-mindedness, but that just explains Gen Zers using their cell phones.
Ooh, shots fired.
Not wrong. Not wrong at all.
Actually, Hooligan, when you hear zombie, what do you what's the first thing that pops into your mind?
Well, to me, I mean, growing up, I was raised a horror buff, so I hear the word zombie. The first thing I think of is horror movies and just the monster in general that everybody's become accustomed to at this point with the show Walking Dead and, just any other zombie movie that's come out. Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead. There's a lot of stuff to go off of now.
That's very true. Very, very true. I'm actually very glad that you brought up Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, things to that nature. Where I grew up and actually where I currently live, we're not far from where the original Night of the Living Dead was filmed from 1968. George Romero. George Romero came in. He did the film as an independent project, and about 10 years later, when he filmed, I believe it was Dawn of the Dead, it was Dawn of the Dead. He did it not just outside of Pittsburgh in a little city called Monroeville, and he used the mall setup. But I'm getting very ahead of topic here. But
have you actually gone to those locations? Checked it out yourself?
As a matter of fact, before the whole COVID-19 ban was initiated, I did get a chance to go check out the cemetery from the Night of the Living Dead, and just to be in that location, it had an additional creep factor to it, because when I went, it was 4:00 in the afternoon. It was pretty rainy and stuff, so it kind of gave you the feel of being almost in a movie, as weird as it sounds. Thankfully, no, but there were a lot of people still walking around at the time. They were, and the way that the marijuana ban's kind of lifting up, I just kind of thought they were stoners. They had that very slow gait pattern, so
they were definitely zombies.
Exactly. I mean, really, isn't a stoner kind of considered a zombie at some point? It's somewhere in there of their reaction, how they do things.
Well, it depends.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's functioning stoners, and then there's stupid ones. I mean, for lack of a better term.
No, I feel like that's fairly accurate. Some people it has no effect on them whatsoever, and it actually kind of helps them to process information better. But then again, like you guys have said, it can make some of them really stupid. But,
so,
go ahead.
I definitely feel like that concept of what a perfect answer on what a zombie is, what is defined as the zombie, what usually starts it. That's always been a question to me. Like right now, obviously we have this pandemic going around. A lot of people are getting sick really fast from it just by they're saying it's airborne. But what is like, because obviously in movies you see a zombie, they bite somebody, they become a zombie, and then it goes on that way. Would you consider this pandemic to be almost like a zombie form of what we are, what it should be versus what we see on TV or kind of believe it to be? I don't know.
My opinion, Jay, if you don't mind, my opinion, I believe when it comes to zombies, what we're seeing is a bit more of like almost like a medical base, like something that you would see in World War Z or I know Hooligan had mentioned earlier, The Walking Dead, where it had just with a little bit of discovery. And also with some of the other films that we're going to talk about later, it all started as like a disease or a germ that, essentially broke out. And then, so in a way, it almost feels like we kind of are living in like the pre-beginning.
That's it. Everyone's going to turn.
Like, I'm not going to be 100% terrified about a zombie outbreak until the corpse reanimates.
That's very true. And depending on like, speed of spread and, like how long it might take a body to be infected. Like, for example, if you have someone like, I'm trying to think of a good example here. Someone who's in a prime health, watches what they eat, no existing medical history. It would probably take someone like them a lot longer to reanimate than it would someone who is not necessarily in the best of health. Maybe someone who's more elderly, someone that has a long history of medical issues. Excuse me.
Someone like me versus someone like my grandmother.
Exactly.
That's a good point. Jay, I'm so sorry. I really kind of took over a lot of the time.
You guys are doing fantastic. I mean, you can take the big pandemic that's going around as everyone's getting quarantined, which is.
I mean, isn't that really kind of like what they call the step one of a zombie?
I remember there's an old meme when. Not swine flu, but there was some sort of outbreak that happened a couple years back, and the CDC came out, made a press conference like, "Don't panic, everything's going to be okay."
Go ahead.
Someone made a meme of the gentleman from the CDC at the podium in like his lab coat. It says, "Normally this is this is the part of the movie where everything starts to go awry."
Well, I was actually like thinking, like, are you sure that wasn't like part of like the H1N1 epidemic? Because if I remember correctly, I don't know. It was actually, I think, a little bit longer back. I think that was probably at least 10 years.
SARS.
Yeah. That's probably the other one I was thinking. Right.
But as far as this quarantine, it does limit our options on one thing. We will not be having a Dawn of the Dead esque, I guess, story to Outbreak. There will be no shopping malls overrun with zombies anytime soon.
No, because they closed all of those.
Exactly, which could lead into our next subject. Let's talk about the old school Dawn of the Dead and, of course, the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Well, to be completely fair, I don't think it almost kind of makes sense, like because you have like Dawn of the Dead or Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. I feel like those two kind of entwine with each other because you have Night of the Living Dead, which is kind of like the precursor to everything, and Dawn of the Dead is like, okay, shit's really starting to hit the fan right now. Mm-hmm. So I feel like if we're going to talk about one, we kind of have to group the other one together.
Oh, of course.
Just my opinion.
One plays into the other, almost like iZombie.
That's a very underrated show. I've watched a couple episodes of it, but
yet that, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it is way off topic to even bring that up. But I mean, zombie apocalypse started out in Washington State, blah 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 blah.
Right. Okay. So we'll start with George Romero's 1968 Night of the Living Dead, which I actually just sat. Oh, go ahead, Jake. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying I was not born.
I don't think any of us were.
My mom was born. My mom's was 4 years old when that movie when it first came out. Not saying anything bad about my mom. I love my mama. But anyway, yep. George Romero filmed it over the course of several months in Evans City, Pennsylvania, which is, no lie, roughly about 35 minutes from my house. And actually, a quick fun fact, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but in 1990, this movie was remade by a gentleman who I think you all know fairly well. Really, really big name in makeup, special effects, Tom Savini.
Oh, wow. No, I did not know that. Yep,
and
the icon.
Yes, yeah. And my one of my secret celebrity, I'm gonna stop while I'm ahead.
Secret celebrity.
Hey,
you can say.
We'll go with celebrity crush, but and the movie starred Dwayne Jones as Ben. Believe it or not, I learned this. Dwayne Jones was actually a former university level professor before he got involved with this movie. A lot of people have looked at this movie as making a little bit of a social statement because of the time that the movie was made, and with the change of society and culture with the 1960s going into the 1970s. At this time, the only African American actors that you saw on main leading roles were Sidney Poitier and.
It was literally the first name I was going to say.
Yep. Yeah. So for George Romero has come out multiple times in interviews saying that that was never part of his plan. He just liked Jones because he settled. He gave the best audition, and which I completely get it. When you're auditioning for a movie, it doesn't matter how someone's going to look. You're going to want to have the best fit, and I think what Ben brought to this movie was absolutely just astonishing. Just the amount of level-headedness that he had, and as how it played off of Barbara, the young girl in the beginning who essentially watched her brother, I guess, get killed by one of these things. Oh, forgot to mention, spoiler alert, if no one has ever watched this.
If no one has watched the over 50-year-old movie, spoilers.
There are kids out there, okay, who don't know what a lot of things are.
Well, you guys are actually in luck. For anyone who is willing and is interested, it is available on YouTube right now for free.
What?
I kid you not. That was actually how the first time that I had ended up seeing it was on YouTube. Because there was this little thing that they had with royalties and something with public domain. The two Romero and one of the producers couldn't figure, like, had a bit of a disagreement and a fallout. So Night of the Living Dead had been on public domain, I think, up until mid to late 2000s. But seriously, I do encourage anyone, who's never seen this, go watch it. Like, it really is a piece. I feel that it's a piece of cinema history. Now, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. I feel the same way. It's really interesting when you, especially like in today's CGIs of movies and everything being so animated. It's nice to go back and almost watch some of those like old movies that actually have like craftsmanship put into it.
And Jake, I love the fact too that you had brought that up, because all the effects in that were all practical effects. So there are scenes in the movie like where you're seeing people actually walk around naked and like eating like chunks of like what looks like flesh and bone. Those are actually like pig parts. And and people are actually eating those pig parts. I know, it sounds like a good Friday night, right?
That's how Scrapple was made.
Well,
true.
I've never tried Scrapple, so.
What?
You don't know what you're missing.
Yeah, I do. Pig parts.
Good stuff.
I'll stick with my bacon.
That's the other good stuff.
That's the very good stuff.
Pretty much if it's from the pig, it's the good stuff.
But anyway, another thing that I really liked about this was that like they did kind of they were a much slower approach. Like they didn't look like they looked like normal people. Like they didn't, because we've all seen movies nowadays like where if someone's been zombified, like how they kind of take on a different look. I think in Night of the
gray skin, the teeth falling out, the blood coming from every orifice.
That's true. What I was going to say, that was like in the eyes. I've watched Walking Dead. I've seen how some people, when they turn, like their eyes go from like their normal colors to like this really like ice blue. And that was also in another movie that I hope we can talk about later, which I'm kind of excited for. But like there's no real change like in how these people are. And even at the very beginning, when you see Barbara and her brother, I think his name was John, when they're in the cemetery and they see like the first zombie approaching them, he looks just like a normal guy, like right up until he started to attack Barbara. And it's just like, it's all like an automatic thing. Like there's no mental processing. There's no like no thought of like risk versus benefit, or it's just like a basic survival instinct almost.
I guess that really then poses the question between the original, because that's also a nice kind of controversial concept. You always have the original, and everyone's like, yes, the original, that's amazing. That was the first thing ever to come out, and then they do a remake, and you're like,
And I will be honest with you, that's something about the 1990 remake that I did not think I would like, but I actually really did. If you guys, I don't know if you guys had ever seen this one or not, but I'm about to spoil the ending for you. In the very end. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh no, this is the 1968 one. The very end of 1968, they end up killing Ben at the end. Because they mistake him for they don't call them zombies, then they call them ghouls. However, in the one from 1990, it ended up being like the female character who ended up being like, the big final girl in the end. So I thought that was a really interesting like little twist to the original. Not too sure how I liked it, but I'm not sure if it was like an overall like Actually, I'm just going to say this. I liked the 1990 Barbara character much more than I liked the 1968 one. Like, the sobbing, hysterical. I mean, I get it. I mean, I probably would be the same way, like, for at least, like, the first 10, 15 minutes. And then I'd be like, all right, this is what I got to get done. This is what we need to do. This is what needs to happen to survive. But, that's just my 2 cents. What would you guys like to add?
I mean, I would add that you could almost say that they changed the ending in the 1990 version because of the change in society.
That's a good point.
1968's, African American actors weren't as common. 1990s, they're everywhere, and so it kind of tells the story in the movie that, like, prejudice, took over at the end. I know it's, clearly he has to be infected, and so that's why they mistake him for the ghoul. Whereas in the remake, he is clearly turned and is clearly a ghoul and has to be taken down.
Right.
Well,
So,
I hate to go that route, but then doesn't all the black people die first in all horror films?
not all of them, but most of them. And
That's very true.
LL Cool J lives.
Oh, wait, no. That's
yeah.
right. He survived in the oven. Oh my God, I forgot about that movie.
I raise you on Jada Pinkett Smith in Demon Knight.
Oh my God.
I think she did it a couple years before he survived. So.
Yes, because I think Deep Blue Sea was 1999, maybe 2000. Demon Knight, I think, was 1996.
Okay.
But that's going to be on. This is going to be a conversation for a whole nother episode, my friend.
Yes, we have plenty of podcasts to go and a whole plethora of horror movies to jump into.
Yep.
So, since we focus so deep on horror movies, this first one, let's shift gears a little bit and let's dive into a dark comedy. And honestly, my opinion, my favorite zombie movie that's come out in the past ever. My go-to for zombie movies, Zombieland.
Yes.
Because you take all of these tropes and all of these things that have happened in the past 40 years of filmmaking, and you go, let's make fun of it. Like the first scene, they're literally like, yep, first person to die in a zombie apocalypse, all the fat people. And you're just like, oh my God, they said it. They like, said that all the fat people died.
Like it's like almost like the law of the jungle. Like, if you're getting chased by a tiger, wouldn't you trip the slow person?
Exactly.
Zombieland pretty much just showed us that natural selection is the right way to go.
They make fun of the whole you think the killer is dead at the end after you shoot them. So rule 2, double tap. Because in every movie, boom, yeah, I got him. All right, let's get out of here and oh God, they're alive. And they get eaten or bite the leg or get pulled into the horde. What's he say? He goes, one more clean shot to the head, and this lady could have avoided being a human Happy Meal. So I like that it just kind of takes the steam out of all of these horror tropes that people growing up were like, well, why wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't you shoot them again? Why wouldn't you run away as fast as you can?
I enjoy the fact that they kept Bill Murray alive. Ish.
Bill effing Murray.
Yeah. Bill Murray's cameo.
So tell me he had a groundhog with him.
No, this time it was mostly Ghostbusters references.
Well, okay, I can't be too mad about that. I just wanted someone to yell, "It's in the hole!" But anyway.
Didn't he say that in the movie? Didn't he get him to say it? Because
No.
he's all hyped up, he got to meet him?
No, he said, no, they played Ghostbusters. That's what they did.
Yeah, that's right. They reenacted the whole scene from Ghostbusters.
Yep.
Well, that's his prehistoric bitch who runs this town. Or something like that. I totally fucked it up.
Another kind of funny observation of that movie that really kind of is in a full circle. Shortly after that came out, if you remember, the Twinkie thing, the Twinkie factory shutting down. And they made such a deal.
It was a couple years after, because I remember Zombieland came out in 2009. And I want to say the Twinkie shutdown started in like 2012. But yes, because of that movie, everyone still loved Twinkies. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, there's no more Twinkies! It's Zombieland in real life."
Exactly.
And then it ended up basically keeping Hostess alive.
And the outcome, of course, is now Hostess is still around. Twinkies are still being made. It was a good.
All of a sudden, I want a Twinkie. Damn it.
I had a little carrot cake thing, so I'm not sorry.
I always found that to be kind of one of the funnier things. And a lot of movies do that, like especially horror movies, how they take that concept of something that's like in today's society or something of like the future, and it ends up falling apart. And then they realize, holy crap, that actually happened. Go figure.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I think that's the nice thing. That's the funny thing about like horror movies. Like it always speaks to some kind of social commentary.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. You know, when it came to Dawn of the Dead. Well, Night of the Dead. It was about, you know, at the end, blatant. Shoot, what was the word I was going to use? Hold on, I got this. Prejudice. There we go.
Use your brain. Good job.
Night of the Living Dead comes down to prejudice. Dawn of the Dead comes down to mindless consumerism, which is why all the brainless zombies are in a shopping mall.
We did not get a chance to talk about that, but that's so right.
You know, you could almost say that the what was it? I want to say the Dawn of the Dead remake. I want to say. Hold on, I'm looking it up right now so I can, you know, use facts here on the podcast.
Okay, what are?
While you pull that,
facts.
We have all seen Double Tap, right?
Yes, I have.
She has not.
What?
Okay.
I have.
What?
I just got into a job now where I don't have to work weekends, so now I have all the free time in the world.
A little catching up.
Okay.
Mildly. I'm still watching a show from 2015 that I didn't think I would love, so.
I'm watching Supernatural for the third time, so don't feel bad.
I'm not. Well, actually, I was talking about Gravity Falls, which I love Gravity Falls. I'm a big kid. Don't judge me.
Please, I'm pretty sure we all love Rick and Morty, but I also love Archer, so I can't say anything.
Okay, the guy from Archer. Who is the character that voices Archer? Because I think it's the same guy that does Bob on Bob's Burgers.
It is, and they make a reference to that.
Yep.
But so I found it. It's the 28 Weeks Later movie. You know, 2007. You had all this, you know, this heavy metal grunge music and these violent video games. So you could almost account the literal rage virus into that as well.
That's
As you know, everyone has their own social commentaries on these zombie movies.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So All right. So, anything else you guys would like to add for Zombieland or Zombieland Double Tap?
No, the fact that
Well, the only
symbolism
thing I
is,
want to add, what's her name? Emma Stone.
Emma
I love
Stone.
her.
Stone.
I think she's great. That's all I have to say.
Oh, fantastic.
All right. Well, I will raise your dark comedy Zombieland for another dark comedy that came out before Zombieland, which I think may have been a little bit of a better blend of comedy and a little bit of heartfulness. And I think you boys
Okay.
know where I'm going with this. Shaun of the Dead.
Ooh.
I totally forgot about that one.
Yes.
I honestly did too, but I mean, I love Shaun of the Dead. And
Go ahead.
God bless Simon Pegg and Nick Frost for
Yes.
remaking the famous "Go to the Winchester, wait for this to all blow over" when COVID came out, and they're like, "So, are we gonna meet up to Winchester?" No, that's a terrible idea. We should stay inside. Wash your hands, make sure everything stays clean, and try to avoid big public places. Okay, well played. Well played, gentlemen.
I mean, like, I think I like it so much because it just, to me, if like, you have your main character, your main antagonist who, it seems like they have an ordinary life, but it kind of feels like they don't, if that makes any sense. I mean, World War Z, I don't know what the hell Brad Pitt was doing, but to me, I don't know if it's just because it was Brad Pitt, but I had a hard time suspending my my disbelief. Yes. Whereas, when you had Simon Pegg, as Sean, I felt like he was the one guy that I felt like I could relate to very easily, because it's like, I had the same routine every day. Like, I'll stop, get a cup of coffee, or like I'll stop somewhere and get lunch, or do whatever. And then all the, like, you're still going about your day, and you don't pay attention to what the hell is going on around you.
Don't pay attention to zombies just chilling outside.
Exactly. But I think oh, go ahead.
No, I think you're absolutely right. It almost like gives it's again making fun of like society of today and how we do things. It's so automatic. You're an adult and you go to work, you come home, you eat food, you go to work, you come home, and it's just the same thing.
It's autopilot. I call it autopilot.
I think the only difference between now and when Shaun of the Dead came out is if they had made it nowadays, he would have just been on his phone the whole time while also going about his routine.
You're
and then
absolutely
eventually
right.
bump into somebody and be like, "Oh, my bad," and just hear, and then just keep walking, like not even pay attention.
I know.
So
go ahead.
one of my favorite things about Shaun of the Dead is in all of these movies, all the zombie movies, Zombieland, World War Z, even some of the Dawn of the Dead movies, you have this one guy who's this big, burly, badass dude who's like just out to collect heads, There is not one of these guys in this movie.
No.
And I love the fact that they do that. Of the fact that, even Jesse Eisenberg, being the goofball that he is, can still pull off a zombie kill. And then you go back to Shaun of the Dead, and you're like, you see or Simon Pegg and Nick both be like, what do we do? Quick, throw records at him?
Yes, it was the
grab
records.
A croquet mallet.
But I like going back to the records.
They grab the rifle and they're like, how do I use this? Like, they're not this zombie killing badass. They're two knuckleheads that are just barely surviving.
Mm-hmm. You're right. But again, I think the one part of that whole movie that really got to me, well, there's two. One of them was when they were in the Winchester and Sean found out that his mom was infected, and like my heart broke so badly in that moment, because I don't know about you guys, but I have a very close relationship now with my mom. And I know, like, if I was in that kind of predicament where I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah, I guess that poses a question now, and a lot of people ask that, especially when it comes to like the zombie conflict.
Mm-hmm.
For someone that doesn't kill, has no instinct to kill, would you be able to pull the trigger on anyone, no matter what?
That's actually a really good question, and I know that's something that us now, like I know like just the small group of us. I don't think any of us, have quite like. Oh, go ahead. Wait, what?
Survival instinct kicked in. I don't care. I don't see you as you anymore. That's it.
Damn, son.
Damn, that is cool.
Well, I'm actually gonna put this out here right now.
I thought I was special.
I'm gonna put this out there right now. If we are in an apocalypse and you guys know that I'm like Gonzo, I give you permission. End me. I don't want to. I don't think I would want to try to hurt you guys. So just do away with me.
Better keep me alive. See if I'm immune to this thing. Need this I am legend freaking cure to it.
Oh, let's not talk about that. Like, good movie, but I'm not happy with it because he had to kill his dog.
Now, if I start drooling and saying brains, fucking.
Hey, at the end of Shaun of the Dead, he kept Nick alive, and they were trying to play video games in the little shed thing.
True.
Again, you're trying to put that concept though of like someone's been bitten, they could be immune to it, but then you just don't know. That goes back to the whole natural selection concept. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be that evil of a person, but even if I got bitten, sorry, I got bitten. I don't need to infect anyone.
So,
pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually a really good segue because I wanted to talk about this game, which also
now we're going into video games.
Goes into video games, also kind of ties into TV. There is the infamous choice. What would you do if this happened in a zombie apocalypse?
Ooh.
Telltale's The Walking Dead.
What I do?
Walking Dead.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't played or gotten to the end. Season 1 ends with the main character getting bitten, and you have the choice to either cut off his arm, leave him, or shoot him. Or no, you have the chance to allow the infection to continue, cut off the arm, which, spoilers, doesn't help.
Nope.
And then you can either choose to leave him chained up, or you can choose to shoot him. And it tugs on your heartstrings, especially the fact that you are playing as this character, Clementine. Sorry. Clementine.
Yeah, I was going to say Clementine.
Spoiler. You're playing this character, Clementine, who has not, basically adapted yet. She hasn't killed any zombies. She hasn't become one of these, I guess you could use the word hunters, just yet. This is the first time she has to make a choice like that. So it's a really, like, just tugs on your heartstring moment, but it's a question that always gets asked in, zombie movies like this or any kind of zombie media is what would you do?
My response to that is screw that game for the very same reason. Because that whole ending scene tugs on your heartstrings because I chose to actually shoot him as the little girl. And because honestly, it's the better ending. And like you said, even if you cut the guy's arm off, it doesn't help.
I'll be honest with you. I never played the game, so.
Yeah, call me heartless, but I'm pulling the trigger.
I mean, honestly, because the way my brain works, I have like super bad anxiety. Mm-hmm. So if I were to do that, I would probably pull the trigger because I would fester on the idea of if I leave him here, what's going to happen? Is he going to get free? Is he going to, like, how painful is this turn going to be? Is someone else going to come along? Is this infection going to get worse? Like, all of these other factors when I'm just like, if I end it now, I end it now, and I don't have to think about that.
Yeah. And sometimes the easier way to go is to end the misery that you're in.
That's true, because that actually
I must put a disclaimer out real quick though, because there's other people that are going to listen to this. No, I do not condone in self-infliction or pain toward yourself or others. Seek help if that's something that's needed. We're speaking of zombie defense.
Yeah, this is all about zombies. This is
so. If you are having problems or you are worrying about certain things in yourself, please get the help that's needed out there. We're speaking as zombie tense.
100%.
Agreed. Agree. So, that's wow. Now, like I said, I've never played the game. I've not played the game, but I have watched a few seasons. So, let me ask you guys, like, okay, so, and this is going to, like, segue into another movie. But how do you guys think that someone who has been, like, essentially in a coma, like, since the outbreak of this epidemic, like this zombie outbreak, do you guys think it's actually possible for someone to be alive, like, to survive, like, that outbreak and, like, not be touched by someone who's been infected or been attacked by someone who's been infected?
Let me draw your question. Just make sure I get what you're asking. You're saying if someone is in a coma state and they're alone the entire time and then come out of the coma state, are they considered okay? Like, how do they cope with it?
I think she's asking more or less, how realistic is it that Rick from Walking Dead stayed in a coma the whole time and not, like, not one zombie got to him, not one walker got into the hospital. Just, like, how realistic would that be? I think is her question.
And here's here's the second part to that too, because in the very first episode you saw Rick get shot, so he has blood. And if there's one thing that we have learned from just the years of zombie lore, they like blood.
Blood, guts, and brains.
Yep.
Actually, wait a minute. I'm actually like trying to really rethink this, because strike what I said about the whole blood thing, because I'm gonna probably recant myself here later on. But yes, first part still stands. How likely do you guys think that would be?
Well, honest. Go ahead, Jake.
Okay. Doors closed in a room. Zombies don't open doors.
They kind of like shuffle into them and push them.
Exactly. So if someone's in a comatose state in a room, unleft alone, and yes, there's been points where in the show they kind of segued of opening and closing and kind of interaction of its own kind, but in a perfect situation of doors staying left closed, who's to monitor his comatose state of getting any better or any worse? I feel like at some point in there, he could be left alone. He could come out of it being okay.
Fair point.
Yeah, go ahead.
I said, your thoughts, Kirby?
I'd probably agree with you. It all really comes down to how the hospital would have been set up, because you see in the show, like, first scene, that The walkers are behind the door that's chained up, that's bolted up. You don't really see any corpses in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in the canon, the continuity of the show, yes, he could have survived. It really depends on when everyone decided to tuck tail and run, and when he woke up. Because if, like, example, if everybody ran and he was still in bed a day ago, yes, he'd be fine. But if everyone ran and he's been in that room for 2 weeks, nah, he's gone. And not even from zombies. He's gone from lack of monitoring. He's gone from, any kind of saline or any kind of food that they're giving him running out. Like, that's kind of where they're at.
He'll die of natural causes because no one's checking in on him.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Hooligan, what are your thoughts, my friend?
I think we lost Hooligan. I'm trying to get a hold of him. I think he accidentally may have dropped out of the call.
Oh.
Let me see if I can get him back in.
In the meantime of that movie, obviously there's a lot of main characters in the Walking Dead show, and it's really interesting because even in the game they highlight main characters of the game. Well, one of them that I found to be really an interesting character that and not really more protagonist concept, but just how they portrayed him was Glenn.
Really?
His part that he played was so indifferent. His part was played as trying to be helped, but at the same time took away from it because he had, that you were talking about, that moral feeling of, okay, this is what's right, this is wrong.
Right.
What's the best way to go about the situation? And throughout the entire show, as far as his life in the show, he always had that back and forth conflict of this isn't moral, or maybe this is, or maybe this isn't moral, maybe that is.
Right. And
it wasn't like Daryl or the other guys. It's like, nope, dead, bye.
Yeah.
And that's actually that's definitely a very good way of pointing out and looking at it. I mean, I'm just trying to remember because I kind of dropped off of watching it, but like I remember enough of it that, like I didn't read any of the graphic novels or the comics, which, in hindsight, I don't know if I should have or not, but that's still going to be determined. I guess like a lot of it, the same thing, like a lot of it I just still had like a hard time, just some things in it that like I still had like a hard time like suspending disbelief on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like just the idea of like that medical, because that in a couple of media portrayals that has happened, like for example, another movie that I've seen that happen was 28 Days Later, where the guy wakes up essentially like, I don't know if I think he was in a coma, but I wasn't sure from what. And then if we're going to go a little bit further back to a time before The Walking Dead, to a little video game franchise that became a movie franchise. And I'm talking.
Here we go.
Jay, you know where I'm going with this. I'm going Resident Evil, the Umbrella Corporation.
I have Resident Evil.
Actually, you know what? Scratch that, because that did not. I'm thinking Resident Evil Apocalypse. That's how it first happened. Because in the original, she wasn't in a coma. She like allegedly like got knocked out or something, like some dust. It's a whole big convoluted thing.
Yeah.
It's funny because like the only relation I have to Resident Evil is the video game series that came out, and it's partially zombie, partially medical.
Yeah.
It's the good old T virus, as it's dubbed.
Yes.
So I just got message. Hooligan did drop out. His phone was not up to the task of hanging into the chat, so we apologize to him. We're definitely gonna have him back on the show. Yes, but Resident Evil. See, what's the thing that I don't like is the fact that the games and the movies are so different. Like it's almost not even the same franchise.
Right.
And I can get into a rant about Paul W.S. Anderson and his direction with it and all that. But we don't have that kind of time.
And that's where my take of it is. It's kind of hard because I don't follow the movies as much. I follow the games more. So right. I feel impartial to a full discussion of understanding.
And the games, see what's crazy is the movies did what the games did later on. So the games started off straight horror. Started off in the creepy mansion filled with zombie experiments, the T virus.
Mm-hmm.
Then Resident Evil 2, you're in the city after the outbreak, after they get out of the mansion. Spoilers. 3, I forget where 3 takes place, but it's in the world after it's broken out. 4 is in a small village in the middle of a countryside that
it's a countryside village, yeah.
Yeah, that's infected. It's like partially infected, like almost like what's that movie? Bird Box. We have people who like go crazy because of it, but they don't die. It's kind of like that. There are people who clearly off their rockers, but they're not zombies.
Right.
And you kind of have to attribute that to the T virus and to the mutations going on. And then 5 and 6 go into more. 4 really is where it started to shift, but 5 and 6 is where it goes from like a straight up horror, running away from zombies, trying to avoid being, mauled and attacked, to just a straight up just action blockbuster. Whereas in the movies, they really only do it after the first movie. They're like in the facility in the first movie, then the outbreak starts, and then it's just all action. They kind of take all of the horror and dread out of the first 3 games as far as the movies go.
Okay.
I'll be honest though with you. Like Mila, I think that was her name. Mila Jovovich.
Yes,
however,
Jovovich.
Thank you.
Hey, Jovovich.
I know her character was not in the video games like at all.
No.
But I will say though, like on film, I almost didn't mind her so much. And now, granted, I only saw the first 2 movies, and then based on what I've read, the rest kind of went downhill. But I'm good.
So before I will teeter this line here without diving too deep. In the games, no, Alice does not exist until Code Veronica, which is a spinoff. Yep. Jake knows. She's not a character until Code Veronica, which is a spinoff.
Which wasn't all that good of a game, just saying.
But in the movies, they take this character that doesn't exist in the games. They literally created her for the movie. And I think it's mostly because of the direction. Again, Paul W.S. Anderson being married to the actress. He wanted this badass, kill everything kind of character, and he created Alice for the movie. whereas she didn't exist in the games, so it's too blatant, I guess is the words I'm looking for.
I gotcha.
I think for a movie sense, though, because you gotta, and this is kind of a side topic to it all as well. If you're looking at like a movie like Lord of the Rings or something like that, and how you have a group of characters that are being portrayed in a movie, that same group of characters are portrayed in a game. But when it came to Resident Evil, they couldn't just pick like a group to make a main character. It was too specific for the situation, so they had to use a single person for the movie just to capture the audience for something.
I disagree, because if you wanted to use a main character, you could have used Jill Valentine. You could have used Chris Redfield. Whereas in the movie, they just kind of sideline them. They're like, hey, they're in the movie, but that's it. You know, they don't give them the spotlight that they give them in the games, where they're like in the games. You play as
either Joel or Matt.
Yeah. So like, I don't see why. Well, I know why, but it
almost doesn't make sense to create.
Not to.
It almost didn't make it. Now, with pointing that out, and I'll be honest, like I actually did forget about Jill Valentine, you know, but again, like in the movie, I don't think she appeared until Apocalypse, which I believe was the second movie. And go ahead.
I think she was in the first movie and dies.
No, she was in the second movie.
Okay. And then I know for a fact that she dies because they bring her back
at the very end
of her movie.
Yes.
And they do sorry, not to cut off. Looking into it, Jill Valentine was not in the first one.
Okay, that's my bad.
I was about to say. But I do remember her character like from the second movie, and I think like the way she kind of played off of the character of Alex, like it worked, but it almost felt like one of them like almost didn't belong, because like you were having like I'm for it, like I'm cool with it. Excuse me, but you know, like when you have like such strong comparable female roles, and essentially like they're almost like carbon copied the same, except go ahead.
I almost have to remember, because it's been 2004 when the second one came out. It's been a long time ago. Mm-hmm. But wasn't that when they came out with it, and Jill Valentine, didn't she have that the crystal or whatever it was in her chest?
No, that's later.
See, as I said, I don't remember the exact order of how that played out. But that's going off of that. Then if it was later, it's kind of like the movies were playing into that situation, because Jill, technically being the good, became the evil, while Alice the entire time was just the good. So they had to have some sort of play off of that they couldn't just leave out.
Right.
Okay. I kind of get it, but it's like I said, like after the second movie, which I think it would have been perfectly fine if they left everything alone at the second movie.
Just ended it there.
Yep, I'm not ashamed of my opinion.
But here we are, almost 8 movies later.
Exactly. Which should have never happened, but
that's all.
They were leading the field for Fast and Furious. That's all.
That's a topic for another podcast. But so that kind of brings me to my next point. This will probably be one of our last points, so we can wrap this up in the next couple minutes. The late 2000s, 2008, 2009, mostly right before Zombieland came out, and even a little bit after, you had an extremely, because I think Resident Evil did not help this situation, you had an extreme saturation of the market and just zombie everything. So, zombies in this game, zombies in that game, this zombie movie, this zombie movie. And so I say that because we had a couple video games that we didn't get to talk about. One being the famous Call of Duty. Went from Call of Duty World at War, I think was the first one where they introduced the Nazi zombie game mode, which was a huge hit. No questions there. Huge hit. Then I want to say Black Ops was the next one.
Black Ops.
Maybe not in the series, but it's the next one to have zombies in it, which, again, huge success. And then it slowly just started taking over the franchise. People stopped caring about the campaign and mostly played zombies and the multiplayer. Zombies and multiplayer. I'll play COD Zombies. I've literally heard the phrase, I'm only buying Call of Duty for the zombies. So, like, there was just this huge oversaturation, which I think is funny because another game that we get to mention kind of took the piss out of it for everybody afterwards, and that is South Park Stick of Truth.
It's funny. I'd never played that.
It is an absolute blast. But one of the main antagonists in the game are Nazi zombies. And the game even says that, like, oh no, not Nazi zombies. That's literally the most generic, overused enemy they could have thought of to create. And you're just sitting there holding your head like, oh my gosh, they're right.
But that's what South Park is made to do.
Oh yeah, agreed, 100%. But I'm saying, but they were right as far as, oh my goodness, there is just so much zombies in the market right now. Thank goodness somebody said it.
Mm-hmm. Amen, brother.
I find that you're absolutely right, and it's to say South Park and being that instance. I mean, that's the goal of that type of show. So of course they're going to put it in their gameplay. Of course. Hey, let's poke fun of the thing that's being most ostracized in the world or in the industry at the time. I mean, think about it. I bet tenfold if South Park came out with a game right now, it'd be making fun of something of today's gaming society.
100%.
I mean, their show itself continues to do that, and you say it's underrated, but another one that kind of got its saturation and underrated, as you were talking about the games, is also Dead Island. And that one was just point blank to the face of just zombie.
Yeah, the Dead Island game was it was rough. Like, they thought they could just carry almost an entire franchise on zombie killing, and
I enjoy the creative role that it took with the idea that just running around and like shooting a zombie in the face everywhere you go. So yay for that. It took a little bit more creativity that you have to come up with weapons. Some of them you actually had to fight off in person, but again, it was like everywhere you turn, you're running into a zombie. And, that's what kind of killed the game. Honestly, that's what killed the game. It wasn't able to sustain the continuity of something different.
Right. I think that there is, how do I put this? The Dead Island games, it didn't deliver on what it said. It gave you this beautiful idea of like a dramatic story on this island resort and you're gonna have to survive. You're gonna have to like build your own weapons, and then when the game comes out, it's just this huge like deflation because there's no good story behind it. The weapons that you find are abysmal.
Yeah.
Like the first weapon you find is like a
It's a
sharpened
bat.
stick. Whereas you play a game like, great example of how to start off a zombie game, hot, heavy, and keep it moving, Dead Rising.
Yes.
It's like, here's a bunch of zombies, here's a weapon over here, start getting creative.
Yep.
And it puts you on the time limit so that you're not just wandering around all willy-nilly the whole time. It's like, okay, I gotta go.
I totally agree with that. And Dead Rising was a amazing game.
Oh, I love the Dead Rising franchise.
The way that that zombie portrayal and how to go through it was just amazing. They did a great job with it, and it ran its course in the right way. And that's some of those things that happen in these games too. You gotta look at it as, okay, they made one, they made another, but how do you keep it going? It doesn't need to end with just the one. And Left 4 Dead was one did its job very well, but it left itself open.
I adored the Left 4 Dead games. I was still holding out up until about a week ago for Left 4 Dead 3, but I guess they announced that that's probably not going to be the case. But oh my goodness, Left 4 Dead was one of my go-to zombie games. Which again, it's kind of ironic that we started off the show with the four of us, because that is the core gameplay, is the four of you working together in Left 4 Dead, and it was really important. It was really important to have the 4-person team because you had to work together to beat the game. Those are one things that I really loved about Left 4 Dead, is because you had to work together. If you're like, I'm going to go off on my own, well, you're going to be in trouble.
You're not going to make it. Yeah.
Exactly.
And if you did make it, you did something.
If you did make it, you're waiting on the others to come up behind you. And if they don't make it, well, then you're just going to fail the mission as well.
Yep.
So, and really,
I loved its portrayal of the witch. That was probably like the.
I hate the witch. Oh my gosh.
Well,
witches and tanks.
It's funny that you mentioned that you hated the concept of the witches and tanks, but to take the opposite side to it, the witch was like, it was, as much as it was a zombie, I took the witch to be more of like a ghost. And it was because you always hear about like ghostly figures, and I know this kind of segues from off the zombie concept, but they took it in the sense that ghosts are the things and entities that we can't explain and or see, and the only time we see them is when something antagonizes it to come out.
Yeah.
It wasn't like all the other zombies. The witch was the one thing that's hidden, and you have to go after it. And when you go after it, it comes to you. The tank, on the opposite side.
The tank just kind of barrels through the wall, and it's like, surprise, I'm here.
Exactly. Which is the opposite. The entire opposite of it. And for the tank, and the way that it came about, it took it as, hey, there's no avoiding. And that's why you take almost like a life concept. You can't avoid it. It's going to come for you, whether you like it or not. So deal.
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh,
So,
I just realized now I'm going to have to invest in a gaming system and learn how to play some video games.
oh, of course, we're definitely going to have some sort of curbside Left 4 Dead team. We're going to find a way to do this, and it's going to be amazing.
Oh, wait, if we're going to do a curbside Left 4 Dead team, can we have a curbside drinking Disney team?
Yeah, duh.
However we turn this out, I will forever be Coach. Just saying.
Wait a minute. I love Coach. I figured you'd be more of a Nick or an Ellis player.
I mean, my secondary is Rochelle.
Very well. So, segueing out of our witch conversation, start wrapping this up. But like you said, witches were always about avoiding them. And if you couldn't avoid them, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone who's out there, everyone who's listening, with this whole COVID-19, coronavirus, outbreak, zombie pandemic, whatever you call it, just take the proper precautions, wash your hands, avoid huge groups that could possibly be exposed, just try to do the right thing. Much like the Left 4 Dead games, if we all work together, we can get through this, but we can't panic and run off on our own. Segueing back, but try to take care of each other, try to look out for each other, keep the social distance rules, just try to be decent people and look out for everybody, So with that, Jake, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Send a message to Hooligan that thank him for joining us. Unfortunately, he, dropped out towards the end due to technical issues. But it's been an awesome time. Gotta have